Welcome to Earth, a planet rich in natural resources. Earth looks tranquil as it moves through space. A planet with billions of human beings. It is endowed with plentiful resources. A fantastic array of natural resources. Incredible amounts of water. Enough land to feed every human being. But let's take a closer look at what's happening on Earth today. Despite its vast space, boundless natural resources, expanding technological advancement, why is it that so many people have to suffer, continue to live in abject poverty, experience homelessness, search for food that should ideally be in abundance? Why is it that human beings, in an age in which we can talk of such great advancements in technology, continue to experience the kinds of hardships that defy the technological place that is present today? A great deal of research has been poured by various academic institutions and professionals into understanding what poverty is. The interesting thing, however, is that we still, to date, don't seem to be able to understand what poverty is. If we knew what poverty was, then in all likelihood we would know what wealth was, and we would be able to create wealth on tap, so to speak. Despite the knowledge we've gained in economics at universities and colleges, despite what we know about business administration, we still don't seem to be able to place our fingers on exactly what wealth or poverty is. What I'm going to try to do is explain in as clear a fashion as is possible what poverty and wealth are. We will try and find a scientific explanation for why economies experience these conditions, and try to provide an explanation that universities and colleges today have not as yet explored and have not really looked into as a scientific reason why countries, individuals, societies experience hardship on one end and immense opulence and wealth on the other. If we can clearly define what poverty is, and in so doing look at the flip side of that and understand what wealth is, then we should be able to come up with a standard model for wealth and poverty that allows us to walk into an environment experiencing hardship, apply a standard model for advancing that society and its economy, and being guaranteed with the result that this economy thrives, becomes wealthy, its citizens' standard of living improves, and basically the goals that are set to transition an economy from one that is third world, so to speak, to one that is first world, becomes something that is more scientific, has less guesswork. I'm going to introduce to you now is a background to how you try to understand what causes economies to either be poor or rich, deeply impoverished or wealthy. We need to look at how the economy is actually structured and figure out what mechanisms within it actually cause these conditions. Now, what I'm about to discuss is probably something that is new to you. I don't think I've heard it discussed at the World Economic Forum. I've never heard it tabled at the World Bank. I've never seen it as a program that has been discussed with developing economies by the IMF. So, in essence, it's something that it's new and it's unique. But in terms of being out there, it's been out in public for some time now in a book that I published around 2006, or that I put out into the world around 2006, called The Greater Poverty and Wealth of Nations. What we're going to do next is introduce what's called the circular flow of income. The circular flow of income, technically, if you have a background in economics or you're in business management, you're likely to understand what the circular flow of income is and how it works. But even if you are a layperson, it's very easy. I'll introduce it to you, and then based on the circular flow of income, we'll now start unraveling why it is that modern day economies experience poverty as they do today. An economy basically consists of two key areas, and that is industries and households. What you tend to find is that the people who work in industries are the same people who go out into the supermarkets, the stores, etc., and make purchases. So we're talking about industries and households. Now, over time, the money that is held by industries is paid out as wages to households, and people from households go out into the market and purchase goods and services. What now begins to happen is this money begins to move back and forth between industries and households. So over time, you have a circular flow of income. That is money moving from industries to households and back to industries and back to households. However, at any given point in time, you'll find that money is either in the hands of industries or it's in the hands of households. Now, it's important to distinguish between the circular flow of income over time and at any point in time. Because when you observe it at any point in time, what you will find is that the money that is held by industries and the money that is held by households creates a vacuum that promotes scarcity that is hidden, because we tend to focus on the fact that the circular flow of income or money is constantly flowing between industries and households. The truth is that at any point in time, if you look at industries holding at least 60% of money supply, then the 40% that is held by households is denied industries, and the 60% that is held by industries is denied households. And this can only be observed in time rather than over time. If you observe the circular flow of income at any given time, then you find that money supply actually has no value. It's zero. It's incapable of production. The consequence of this is we are able to identify the origin of scarcity. This scarcity is actually causing undercurrents of poverty within the economy. Now, if you've been paying attention to the diagrams that I've just shown you on the circular flow of income, then how poverty is, or the scientific origin of poverty, has just been explained to you. What it explains is that the economy that businesses operate in today is not conducive. It's somewhat defective, so to speak. It doesn't matter which factor you use to determine whether this economy works. In this case, I use households and I use factories or industries. Now, when I use those two factors, I'm able to show that despite the circular flow of income, showing income moving around between households and industries, the fact remains that the actual productive value of money within that economy is zero. Now, if the productive value of that money is zero, then what you actually have is a poverty-generating machine. It is not capable of growth. It creates the illusion of growth through the circular flow. But what's happening beneath that flow is that scarcity is being generated in such a way that people cannot exist in that economy productively. Which is why you have kids on the street begging, which is why you have businesses failing, which is why you have countries struggling to get out of conditions where people are basically living below the poverty line. The truth of the fact is, it has nothing to do with the people living in those economies. It's the design of the economy itself that is manufacturing or producing scarcity beneath the circular flow of income that robs the economy of its ability to be productive. Now, the tragedy of this whole thing is that you have poor countries across the world, in Africa, in Asia, struggling to feed their people, to develop their businesses, to increase their income per capita, and they're given all these remedies by which to try and improve their economic growth and economic development. But the fact remains, none of these remedies address the fact that the economy itself is defective. Now, if you have an economy that is absorbing or wasting as much as 100% of the productive value of money, that is a huge loss to an economy. And the fact is that governments simply cannot create wealth realistically in an economy like this. And to expect leaders, government agencies and businesses and so on to be able to sufficiently generate jobs, employment, to create raw materials and that sort of thing in an environment of scarcity where the scarcity is at such high levels is totally unrealistic. Now, what we've shown you is the macroeconomic view. We're going to prove that this is actually what is going on with businesses by moving to the microeconomic view of an economy. So now you can see at the level of businesses how their attempts to be productive are being suppressed by a defective or ineffective economy that is used by countries all over the world right now. This episode, I mentioned that if we know what the scientific origin of poverty is, then we would know basically how to address that poverty. And if we knew what the scientific origin of poverty was, then the flip side of that, which is wealth, we would be able to know exactly what wealth is. Poverty and wealth are simply two sides of the same coin. If you know one, then you know the other. Now, having identified what the scientific origin of poverty is, as you'll see as we go through these episodes, will allow you to see exactly how it is that you structure an economy to be able to generate wealth and do away with scarcity. An economy that has no unemployment, where everyone is fed, where everyone is taken care of, where the per capita incomes are high, It's not impossible, it can be done. But in order to achieve this type of economy, you can't do it if you do not know what poverty actually is. And that's the situation, I think, that we are in today. And what I hope to do is, through these episodes, explain exactly what it is that poverty is and what wealth is. And by knowing what the two of these things are, you'd be able to now appreciate what is actually required to turn economies around on tap, as I said earlier, and move them from poor economies to rich economies, from poor countries to wealthy countries. It shouldn't be a process by which it's hit and miss, it's guesswork. It should be a concise, scientific process. If you apply it, the people in that economy, its government, everyone associated with it moves from an impoverished state to a wealthy state, moves from being in one condition to being in a better condition, a higher standard of living. This is the no-nonsense approach to growth and development in economics and business studies. This is the approach that will end poverty for all of humanity.